Hey man, what up man? Monday, February 3rd in the NBA. We got some NBA picks in today's video. We got a 10-game NBA slate. I've got two of my best bets and a lot of other leans that I love in today's slate. Let's get to the recap of how we did last week and how we did yesterday, and then let's jump right into the slate. You feel me? Well, you may be feeling me on jumping into this slate, but you're not feeling me with the picks the last couple days because, oh my boys and girls, last couple days, man, have been rough. So, hey, yesterday, Bulls +6 versus the Pistons. That was kind of what I told you guys I was going to be looking at. They end up losing by about 8 there. Bucks, I doubled down on them. Ended up taking them -3 before game time, and then after the first quarter, I doubled down on the Bucks there because I really thought they were going to beat them at home. They've lost 7 straight games now to the Grizzlies. They were up a decent amount going into that fourth quarter and then get outscored by 19 points, if I'm not mistaken, in the fourth quarter. Ends up kind of screwing our week there. Sunday, not too good of a day, man. 0-3 day for the week, kind of shot our week there. Really was hoping the Grizzlies would have get it done there because if they would have got it done, we would have had a winning week. But losing the 2 on the Grizzlies there really burned us. But hey, man, hey, I got to be transparent here, not hiding from it. We're right back here with another video. If you're paying attention to the leans, hopefully you guys are taking some of the leans. But also, man, hey, transparency, man. Yesterday, garbage. But hey, we got 2 bets in today's video. We're going to get to them, but this first game we're jumping into, the Atlanta Hawks versus the Detroit Pistons. Atlanta, about +4 here. Detroit, a little bit of a home favorite. I thought the Bulls would be able to hang in that game. Pistons just, kind of looked, Pistons out there still looking decent against these bad teams. And Bulls, not a great team, but I really thought Bulls would still have enough scoring to hang in that number. Today, Hawks, hey, Trae Young still, is he on a revenge tour here? Almost beats the Pacers. They put up a lot of points against that Pacers team. Pistons are on a back-to-back. Are you really loving the Pistons on a back-to-back? That's what I'll ask you, because this year on a back-to-back against the spread, Detroit is 4-2-2. Not bad, man. Not bad against the spread. If you're looking over-under, this total is kind of high at about 235.5. Now, against the Hawks, if you are looking over their last about 10 or so games here, their defensive rating isn't that bad. It's like top 15 in the NBA, above average right now, but still, it is the Hawks. I don't know how much you can rely on them to stay in top 15 with their defensive rating. But Detroit here on no rest this year, on a back-to-back, 4-4 to the over-under. This total is a little bit high for them in the 230s, but hey, when there's been a total in the 230s for the Pistons, they've been hitting it. It's just on a back-to-back. How are you feeling here? For me, not really much. I'm loving on a side here. Part of me wants to lean the Hawks. I still feel like the Hawks, they're due, man. They are due. They've lost like 9 straight games here, 8 straight games. Haven't looked good in some of these games. Some of these games against like the Pacers didn't look bad in that game. Does Trae Young does he carry them here? I don't know, man. I don't know. Against the Pistons here, some high props. You got Cade Cunningham at about 27, 28.5 points against really bad pick and roll defenses. He does hit that. So, if you're rocking with Cade, I did like his under yesterday, just I didn't take it. I told you guys, I think when the Pistons play against a bad team or a bad defense, they really don't need Cade to go out there and drop 30 plus points. They really need the times he really goes out there and scores 30 plus is when it's honestly like an okay matchup against an okay defense, a decent defense, but they're needing him to score to hang in that game against bad defenses. Everybody can score against them. So in this spot, I would still be leaning probably Cade over. I think after going a game under, I'm okay rocking his over here. DeAndre Hunter, his usage is through the roof for the Hawks right now. It's just somebody I wanted to point out. His usage is through the roof. So, if you're rocking with him against the Pistons, I don't mind it there. It's just, do you value or do you trust the Hawks to stay in this game? If you think this game's going to be close, I think DeAndre Hunter over 19.5 points isn't a bad look there. The Pistons have been allowing a decent amount of threes to the shooting guard, small forward area. So that kind of relies to or lays on Dyson Daniels there. So if you're wanting Dyson Daniels a little bit, he's just too inconsistent for me. Don't love Okongwu today, but for the Pistons, hey, Jalen Duren doesn't have a bad spot. He's just been balling recently. It's just I don't really like backing. There's a couple big men in the NBA that I don't like backing on back-to-backs. Jalen Duren, Alperen Sengun, those are 2 that I just know off the top of my head. On a back-to-back, I don't really like to back them. So in this spot, I do lean the Hawks, mainly because the Pistons are on a back-to-back. I did lean the Bulls yesterday. I think I lean the Hawks here still with Trae on a revenge tour. And total, miss me with it. Some player props if you're rocking with them, but honestly, my favorite lean there would probably be in the Hawks +4, +4.5, depending on what that spread is by game time. But second game, I do have a best bet in this game, and it is the Wizards at the Hornets. It's the Garbage Bowl. the Garbage Bowl. Two horrible teams. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how bad these teams are. You should know by now. I mean, there's really all the stats in the world are telling you these teams are pretty bad. Now, the Hornets defense, Hornets pace of play, Hornets defense isn't as bad as the Wizards. The Hornets do play at a little bit slower of a pace than the Wizards. So, total at 218, I still got to say, hey, man, Wizards team is just awful right now. Just awful. I'm not going to sit here and go through a lot of props here talking about guys that, I mean, nobody really wants to bet on today. Nobody wants to bet on Nick Smith. Nobody wants to bet on Bilal Kalulubi. Nobody really wants to bet on Kyle Kuzma. I mean, if you're rocking with those guys, rock with them, man. If you think you found an edge on one of those guys, rock with them. But the guy I am rocking with as my first best bet here, and I don't care if this line's at 24.5, 23.5, 25.5. I'm rocking his over here, and it's Miles Bridges over 24.5 points here versus the Wizards. I love the spot for him, and like I said, I really don't care what this line gets to. There's really not a lot of stats. I don't have a lot of stats to back this up, man, because if you're looking this year, he hasn't really hit it a lot. So I can't sit here and tell you, oh, he's hit it 11 of the last 15 or 18 of the last 20. There's just no stats to back it up because it's mainly LaMelo is out, Brandon Miller's out. When those guys are out, Miles Bridges is going to get up a lot of shots. Last year, he had a usage rate of above 30%, which if you're looking, Miles Bridges' usage rate since LaMelo's been out, it's above 30% every game. He had a usage rate above, or versus the Wizards last year, above 30% and scored 34 points versus the Wizards. I like the spot again here, man. I do like the spot. I think he goes over this. He's been shooting right around, last 5 games, 22 points, 26, 23, 27, 24. And honestly, this is probably the best matchup that he's had against this Wizards team. So, I love the spot here, man. I think he goes over it. I don't think this game's a blowout either way. If somehow the Wizards come out here and blow out the Hornets, if somehow the Hornets come out here and blow out the Wizards, I'm just going to shoot that to bad luck, man, because this is such a bad game. But there's one player in this game that I know is going to get up 20, 25 plus shots, and it's Miles Bridges. So I'm rocking with Miles Bridges. That is the first best bet, and he's cashing today. Third game on the board, the Houston Rockets versus the New York Knicks. This game's probably going to be a little bit of a popular one, but Houston Rockets a little banged up here, man. Does look like they're going to be without Fred VanVleet, and Alperen Sengun is questionable. For the Knicks, Josh Hart and OG Anunoby are questionable. So in this game for spread total, I feel like you kind of got to wait a little bit. In my head right here, I kind of want to lean the over. I still kind of want to lean the over right now. I think the Knicks here, their defense really isn't that great. I still feel like the Rockets, with Amin Thompson, with Jalen Green, they can play at a quicker pace. They can play a little bit quick here. And if they're kind of running and gunning with those guys, I don't know if they're going to try to get in a shootout with the Knicks with how their offense has been playing, but I kind of lean the over at 224. I think if it goes up anymore, like that high 220s, which I don't think it's going to go from 224 to 228.5 before game time, but who knows? Maybe it will. But if it would, then I think I would be more leaning the under. But this total right here, 224.5, I'm leaning the over. Some player props, I think a lot of these props in for the Rockets are priced based off of VanVleet being out and probably Alperen Sengun being out. Amin Thompson, he's really the only line that really didn't get crazy bumped. Like Jalen Green today, his line is at 24.5 for points. If you're rocking with Jalen Green, man, I don't mind it. Just against the Knicks, hasn't really ever had good games versus the Knicks. But we've seen what Jalen Green's been doing over the last 5, last 10, having monster games in some of these, flying over 23, 24.5 points to where that line could be almost considered low after this game tonight if he drops 30 plus points. Amin Thompson, 16.5 points. He's kind of been going up and down. The man doesn't really shoot a lot of threes. He really is getting to the free throw line a lot. That's where he's getting a lot of his points from. The Knicks, top 10 and not allowing a lot of free throw attempts. Like they are top 10 in free throw attempts allowed. They don't allow a lot. So if you take that stat to heart, maybe you're not loving Amin Thompson here. But to me, Jalen Green's just too streaky of a shooter. You got to hope he shoots well. Now, he has been balling this year, so you could definitely take it. In this spot, though, with all the injuries to the Rockets, Rockets off a loss, man, are so good. Now, Knicks did just lose last game, too. But if you're looking this year, ATS off a loss, the Rockets are one of the best teams in the NBA off a loss. Off a loss this year, 10-5 against the spread, off a loss. New York, 10-6 against the spread, off a loss. This game could be very close, man. This game could be really close. Rockets have beat the Knicks the last 2 games. If you're looking before that, Knicks won 8 straight. But basically, since Ime Udoka's been the head coach there, what is he, 2-2? 2-1 against the Knicks, and they're off a loss. Now, if the Rockets weren't so banged up, I would say Rockets all the way here. But since they're a little banged up, I think you just gotta wait for some injury news here. But I think I lean the over. Part of me wants to lean the Rockets, but it's a tough lean there, very tough lean. I would more lean the over. But moving on to the next game, San Antonio Spurs versus the Memphis Grizzlies there. San Antonio versus Memphis. Memphis about a 4.5 point favorite here. They are playing on a back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken, because they did just play last night because I did have the Bucks. Now, a little bit of a weird travel schedule here. They played in New York, go to Houston or go back home, and then go to Milwaukee, and now they're traveling back to San Antonio here. San Antonio's last game did play against the Heat, and Victor Wembanyama was out. In this game, Victor Wembanyama, I am still seeing is questionable. So obviously, if Wembanyama doesn't go in this game, I do like the Grizzlies minus 4.5. If Wemby goes, it just, I mean, do you want to, I mean, do you think Wemby's going to come back and be fully healthy? I mean, it's kind of up to you. Right now, there are not a lot of props out in this game. Not a lot. Victor Wembanyama at 24.5 points. Chris Paul at 9.5. Ja Morant's there, but even Ja Morant, if I'm not mistaken, is questionable as well. I don't even know why they have his point line out because last I saw he was questionable. So a couple guys there that are out. A game that you really can't put a lot of thought into until I know the injuries in that game. Because if Wemby plays, Ja Morant is out, I kind of lean the Spurs if it's +5 range. But even then, Grizzlies at home, still wagging. So I say I would lean the Spurs, but wait for some injury news, man. I feel like that line's going to move throughout the day a little bit. And I would probably still lean the Grizzlies, but just Grizzlies on a back-to-back. I love the Grizzlies defense at home. I do love the Grizzlies defense at home. So even at 241, I'd probably be leaning the under there. But once again, you got to wait for some injury news. Fifth game on the board. We're moving right along. The Bucks at the Thunder. Bucks on a back-to-back. Another team. Do you trust them on a back-to-back? I don't love the Bucks on a back-to-back. Bucks did just beat on the Thunder this year in the NBA play-in tournament or tournament, whatever the hell you want to call it, in-season tournament. Bucks do beat them. In this spot, I do lean the Thunder. Now, I almost feel like this spread's gotten a little out of hand at minus 11.5. Now, I do think the Thunder win this game. The Bucks, man, I took them yesterday versus the Grizzlies, and I'm sitting here looking at their schedule today, and I'm like, bro, their travel schedule is brutal. They had a 4-game road trip there going in against the Clippers, the Jazz, the Trailblazers, and the Spurs, losing 3 of 4 there. Then they traveled back home to play 1 game against Grizzlies here, and then now we're on a back-to-back. Now they have to travel to OKC. OKC isn't like a crazy distance from Milwaukee, but still just the travel for them has been kind of garbage. So in this spot, I think it's a tough spot for the Bucks. I do lean the Thunder here. 11.5, I feel like it's a little high. I feel like last night I saw this spread at minus 9.5 for the Thunder, and I even thought that was a little high. But I do think the Thunder probably win this game, and I would not be surprised if they beat the Bucks by 10 plus here, just because it's a tough spot for the Bucks here. Not a lot of props I'm leaning over here for the Bucks, just because I think it could be a blowout. Hartenstein, don't mind it. Jalen Williams doesn't really ever have good games versus the Bucks. His rebound line's at 5.5 today. I feel like Jalen Williams really doesn't go over that rebound line versus the Bucks and versus Giannis. So I think Jalen Williams' rebound line's a little high today. I would almost lean the under at 5.5. Points at 20.5. I mean, it's really up to you, man. He's been balling recently. Did miss 1 game recently, but had about 4 straight games dropping 25 plus points. If you think that keeps on going, rock with it. Jalen Williams this year, I could say that with every NBA player, but he strings off 4 straight games dropping 25 plus, and then has 4 straight games dropping 20 or less. So it's kind of up to you there. I do think this game has some blowout potential, even though it is against the Bucks. So Shea, his point line's at 34.5, just too high in my opinion. If you're liking Giannis, liking Lillard, rock with it. I feel like Lillard did have a decent game versus the Thunder earlier this year, but I think his point line, you've seen it with Lillard, have stringing off 25-point games. They bump his line up to 26, 27.5. 3 straight games now of going under that. So do you trust Lillard there? I would still lean over on Lillard, but just a tough spot, man, with the travel. I think I'm almost just more leaning the Thunder here, but just 11.5 just seems a little high. Maybe you take it, maybe bump it down somehow find Shea for 25 plus points, something like that. Get creative in that game. But for me, I do lean the Thunder. Total at 232. It's one of those spots. I think I'm still going to bring it up. I think the travel. Do you think them traveling that much, having to go on the road, come back home, and then having to travel right back again on a back-to-back? Do you think they go over this? Do you think their offense comes out and plays well, but their defense is just shot? Or do you think vice versa? Or do you think the opposite? Do you think their offense comes out really, really slow and, it's just a lower scoring game? The Bucks on no rest this year, 4-4 to the over-under. So no good trends there really to try to back off there, but in that game, not loving it, mainly because the travel with the Bucks. We're moving right along. The Sacramento Kings versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota here, or Sacramento, did just make a huge trade. No De'Aaron Fox now, no Kevin Herter. Hey, big trade, big trade. So I still am like, I don't think it changes my opinion on the Kings really. Like, I don't think Zach LaVine's going to play today. If I go look right now for Zach LaVine, while I'm pulling it up, I'll keep on talking about this game. But I really don't think this changes my viewpoint on the Kings today. Like, Timberwolves kind of banged up too, man. You're missing Julius Randle. Naz Reid is questionable today. Zach LaVine, I don't see any official news on him being in or out. I think he's going to be out, but he missed a couple games due to a personal reason. And I think it was because he had a baby. So I think that was why he was out. But Naz Reid's also questionable. I mean, boys, I think in this spot, I kind of lean the Kings. Kings, when they made that head coaching change, they strung off some games playing really well, winning like 8 of their 10 with him. They have lost their last 2, but once again, we're on a 5-game road trip here. Still on the road against a Timberwolves team, though, that I think's a little banged up. Now, Ant even missed last game, Anthony Edwards. So it's kind of, I think there are going to be some guys that play in this game. I do think probably Naz Reid plays. I probably think Anthony Edwards plays. Either way, I probably still lean the Kings a little bit. Total at 221.5. I still kind of lean the over. I think the Kings still play at a pretty quick pace. I'm banking on those teams putting up some decent offensive games. So that's another reason why I lean the over there. But looking at some player props, Anthony Edwards point line at 31.5. It's very high, very high. He really hasn't I mean, he's had good games versus the Kings in the past, and without Julius Randle, maybe he keeps it rolling. But that high of a line, I'm probably leaning the under. Any other Timberwolves guys I'm really in love with, Naz Reid, his point line's at 18.5, 17.5, depending on what book you're looking at. I would lean the over there at 17.5. I think it's bumped up to 18, 19.5. Hey, I still lean it just because I think he has a good game, but don't love the line. The line specifically, don't love it. I think he does have a good game. Jaden McDaniels, don't love his overs really, unless if you're rocking rebounds or something. Now, Jaden McDaniels' last 3 or 4 games versus the Kings has had not very good scoring games. But if you're looking Jaden McDaniels about 3-4 years ago, the man was crushing versus the Kings. Hitting this points line a lot, but just this year, last 2 years, really hasn't hit it much. This Kings defense isn't bad, but I mean, maybe you think he has a little bounce back here versus a Kings team that did allow just Lou Dort and Jaden McDaniels, very similar players. And Lou Dort against this Kings team last game literally just put up almost 20 points, if I'm not mistaken, against the Thunder. So maybe Jaden McDaniels kind of fits in, slides into that role, does the same thing as Lou Dort did just last game. But I don't mind DeMar DeRozan today for the Kings. I think Domantas Sabonis, 18.5 points, 19.5 points. He's hit that versus the Timberwolves a couple times this year. I wouldn't mind it. It's really picking and choose which Kings player you think steps up now without De'Aaron Fox. There have only been about 3 or 4 games this year without De'Aaron Fox. And if you're trusting those, like that limited sample size of 3 or 4 games, I think if you're trusting that, DeMar DeRozan, not a bad spot. Malik Monk, Domantas, all those guys do step up a little bit. But I think DeMar DeRozan, DeMar DeRozan, PRA, another good spot. If you guys tailed me on when I just took DeMar DeRozan versus the Thunder, he did go under, but he had 17 PRAs at halftime. Didn't really play much of the fourth quarter because that game was a blowout. In that game, though, or in that spot against good defenses, against top 10 defenses, he hits this line, man. It's just without De'Aaron Fox, they did bump up his point line a lot. They bumped it up like 4 or 5 points. It's up at like 23, 24.5 now. So I still lean DeRozan over there. He's hit that versus the Timberwolves. He's had good games versus the Timberwolves. I lean his over RA, lean his over PRA for DeMar. I'd be running it back from past game that I just took him over on if you're vibing with it. But my second best bet in this game is Rudy Gobert. We have taken Rudy Gobert a couple different times this year, and it's a 2-unit play. I love the spot here for Rudy Gobert, over 11.5 rebounds. Now, if Rudy Gobert had been treating me how he has past 2 years, I would have never put 2 units on Rudy Gobert. But this year and in this spot, it's too good to pass up. He has been treating me pretty well this year. He's been cashing for me pretty consistently. But I mainly like the spot for a couple different reasons. We all know Julius Randle is out. Naz Reid's even questionable. So if he's out, that's another big body that I think Rudy Gobert has to grab boards there. But when Julius Randle's out, I kind of compare him and Cat a little bit. When Karl-Anthony Towns was out of this lineup last year, Rudy Gobert hit this line 13 of 16 games, and 11 of those 13 that he did hit, he had 14 plus. So flying over this line by a couple different boards there. So I love the spot for Rudy Gobert to have a good game. It's mainly a spot against Domantas Sabonis has to grab some boards, and without Julius Randle, Very similar player to Cat playing that power forward position. When Cat was out last year, Rudy Gobert crushed this, and he's at home. You saw it last game. No Julius Randle. Rudy Gobert grabbed 16 boards. Now, that was against the Wizards. Wizards way worse rebounding team than the Kings. But still, I still think he gets 12-plus boards today. So Rudy Gobert, that is my favorite play on the board. It is a 2-unit play. We're smacking that today. Drop a like if you're vibing with that play. But Rudy Gobert over 11.5 rebounds today. 4 more games to go over. New Orleans Pelicans versus the Denver Nuggets. Denver Nuggets about 11.5 point favorites here, and I don't know how you can back them as this big of favorites as of right this time that I'm saying this right now, because barely beat the Hornets by 3. Barely beat the Sixers, only beat them by 3. They lose to the Knicks by 10. I watched a lot of that game. Their defense looked horrible, man. Nikola Jokic was just getting blown by on little layups, just everything, man. He looked like he was giving no effort on defense. Zion, lean is over today. I'm telling you right now, he's had good games versus Jokic in the past. I lean Zion over today, especially with no DeJounte Murray. PA, PRA, points, assists, lean those over for Zion. But Nuggets, man, they haven't looked great over their last 10, but we've all seen the Nuggets at this time, or different times this year. Beginning of the season, didn't look great. Didn't look like that championship contender Nuggets team that we were expecting. Jokic was putting up numbers. Their offense was putting up numbers, but their defense has kind of been not great this year. Against the Pelicans here, 11, 12 points, I feel like it's still a little bit much. I feel like it's a little bit much to where I probably lean the Pelicans here. Now, Pelicans are without DeJounte Murray, but still, man, I still think they have enough scoring. Now, the big thing with the Pelicans is if CJ McCollum, if Trey Murphy have down shooting nights, they're not covering this, man. They're just not. They are not covering this if they have bad shooting nights. And that's kind of a big part with them is if Trey Murphy goes out there, he usually gets up 16, 18 plus shots easy. If he shoots a game where he shoots 30% from the field, CJ McCollum isn't really shooting like picking up the slack, shooting better than 50%. They're just not probably finishing within this number here. Now, against bad rebounding teams, which the Pelicans have been allowing a lot of offensive rebounds recently, I think Jokic here has a great game, has a great spot to have a great game, a typical Jokic game where he just goes ballistic. I mean, I could see a just ballistic game from Jokic today. 60 PRAs. Like, I lean Jokic over PRAs. I lean his over rebounds against a really bad rebounding team. But the thing that kind of held me off against bad rebounding teams, he does crush that. But also, he's had games this year not really hitting that against bad rebounding teams, like his 13.5 rebounds. So, I still like the spot versus the Pelicans. He's always had good rebounding games versus Zion versus the Pelicans, crushing that line. So I lean Jokic to have a very good game here over PRA. They did lose a couple games on the road there. I think they come back home and they string off a couple wins here at home. They play the Pelicans tonight. They play the Pelicans again in 2 days. I hate these type of games, man. I hate these type of games or these type of spots where literally they have the same matchup back-to-back games. So Denver Nuggets, Pelicans, they play tonight, and then on February 5th, they play again. So in 2 nights, I hate these type of spots because it'll be like, oh, you like Jokic tonight? He'll have kind of a down game tonight. Pelicans may get blown out. Nuggets blow him out. And then the next game, they bump up his lines even more to where it makes you stay away from the over. And then that'll be the game that he crushes his over. Like, I hate these type of games, these type of spots in the NBA season. I usually don't like backing these type of spots. So I am staying away, but I do lean Zion over. I'm going to say I lean Zion over, but this game's going to happen in 2 days from now to where I'm going to tell you I lean the same guys over again. So pick and choose which game you want to take their over on. Maybe you like them both. I don't know. But I'm staying away because I hate these spots, man. I hate these type of spots on the NBA schedules where they have the same games back-to-back nights or just a night apart from each other. I can't stand it. But another NBA game here. Let's move on. 3 more games to go over. Indiana Pacers versus the Utah Jazz, man. Indiana about -7 here. You know, Utah's kind of being stingy again. They're fully back healthy, man. Jordan Clarkson's back. You still got Colin Sexton. You got Keontae George. You got Isaiah Collier. All 4 guards there, all fully healthy. Some of those guys have been healthy most of the year, but you get my point. Lauri Markkanen, healthy, even though he's been selling every play that we have for him. The same system backs Lauri Markkanen today. I know you're not going to want to hear it, but Lauri Markkanen, I lean is over today. The only thing that's steering me away is it's at 19.5 points. He's crushed that versus the Pacers. He has crushed that versus the Pacers. The same system applies to me like in his over. So if I'm following that same system, you got to take Lauri Markkanen over today. I'm not doing it as of right now, but before game time, would I be surprised if I lock in Lauri Markkanen? No. The only thing that is scaring me is this season when Keontae George has been healthy, when all the main guys there for the Jazz have been healthy. Keontae George, Colin Sexton, John Collins, Walker Kessler, Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, whoever I just said, all the guys. When all those main guys there for them have been healthy, the top scores for the Jazz that go alongside Markkanen there, he's really not hitting this line that much, man. I mean, he is, but it's like 40%, 50% of games. It's not like that 90, 80% where that's kind of where I'm like, ooh, I really want to take him. So at 19.5 here, I still do lean the over. Some books have this juice to the over at 19.5 minus 130 when he's went under 5 straight games. So we all know Markkanen, streaky shooter. He shoots a lot of threes. Last game, I think he got up 10 shots. They were all threes. Maybe he had one layup. Every other shot was a three. So he's a streaky shooter. He could shoot well, but Pacers don't allow a lot of threes. They're top 10 in 3 points allowed. So they really don't allow a lot of threes. But Markkanen against the spot, for the spot here against the Pacers, crushes. If you expect this game to be close, the system of backing Markkanen when the games are close within 12 points, that system still applies here if you think that game is going to be close. So I lean is over. But for me, this total is kind of high at 240, and I feel like a lot of people are going to like the over, but the Pacers in this spot aren't the greatest to the over, man. They're not the greatest to the over in this spot, but some player props here. I mean, I'm not minding Tyrese Haliburton. He's had some good games versus the Jazz in the past. Pascal, if you're liking the spot, I think Pascal assists or rebounds, not a bad spot, but really I feel like my favorite would probably be more along the lines of probably Pascal Siakam assists or Tyrese Haliburton assists or even Tyrese Haliburton points here, Andrew Nembhard points, some guard there. 4 points is kind of more my vibe against the Jazz there. But Jazz 0-8 in their last 8 versus the bottom 10 scoring defense, 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 games versus the bottom 10 scoring defense. But Pacers on the road, the under has hit 6 of the last 9 Pacers games on the road. If you're looking at who they went under against or who they went over against the Heat, against the Celtics, where the Celtics put up 142 points. But on the road, man, they're really not having many games where they're even putting up 120 points. There are some games where they are, but not a lot. And to where I'm kind of leaning the under. I still lean the Pacers, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Jazz squeak out a win, but I feel like if they do, it's going to go under. So if you were to think the Jazz win, I think this game goes under. If you were to think this game stays close, I think this game goes under. If you think the Pacers blow them out, maybe you think in the over, but I lean the under 240 and a half there. I think it's a higher total for a Pacers game that's on the road. If they were at Indiana, would maybe like the over. But just against the Pacers on the road, haven't been really hitting the overs there that much. But moving right along, no big leans, no heavy leans in that game for that Pacers-Jazz game. 2 more games that go over. And these last 2 games, I'm not going to lie, don't love them because at least this game that we're about to talk about, because these are 2 of the most inconsistent teams right now at this part of the NBA season. The Orlando Magic versus the Golden State Warriors. I don't know how you can back the Warriors. I don't know how you can back the Magic. Magic, they're getting healthier. I guess you could say the same thing with the Warriors. Draymond Green's expected back today. So they're going to have Draymond back. They're still going to be without Kuminga. But, I mean, bro, I just don't know how you can back either one of these teams. You could sit here, and I feel like there's going to be a time where you're going to look, and the Magic are going to be on a 5-game win streak, and you're going to be like, well, I knew that was going to happen, but you got to pick and choose when you think they're going to go on a little run here. I still have full faith in the Magic that they're going to turn it around and have an above 500 NBA season where they're going to finish with a winning record. Right now, though, 2 games below 500. They're on a little West Coast trip here, have lost 3 straight on the West Coast here, or at least faced Miami on the road, then went over to Portland on the West Coast, lost to Utah on the road. Against the Warriors, they've lost 2 straight versus the Warriors, the Magic have. I don't know, man. I feel like the Warriors last game, they were in kind of a bad spot against the Suns there. I kind of thought the Suns were going to win that one after the Warriors had an emotional big comeback victory against the Thunder. I thought they would come out that next game and kind of have a stinker versus the Suns. I feel like I still want to say I lean the Magic, man. I really do. I want to say I want to lean the Magic, but man, it's just, can you trust them? I feel like Paolo's point line today at 22.5, kind of low, but against Draymond, he's only had 1 game going over that. 1 of 3 games against Draymond has went over that. Franz Wagner kind of been the number 1 there, I feel like. So Franz, I feel like could have a decent game. But if you're looking at some trends here in this game, the Magic 1-5 in their last 6 versus top 10 scoring defenses. If you consider the Warriors a top 10 defense at the time of this point of the season. Golden State Warriors 14-6 against the spread in their last 20 versus top 10 scoring defense. So against top 10 scoring defenses, they played pretty well. But I don't know if I don't know if I like the Warriors that much. I do think I lean the Warriors, but also the Magic, man. I don't want to go against the Magic because I could see a game if Paolo, Franz have 30 plus points, they carry the Magic to a win, and then the Magic just string off 4 or 5 straight wins right before All-Star break here. It would not surprise me. So I don't want to go against the Magic there. I am staying away from that game completely. Player props for the Warriors, staying away. Steph's too inconsistent. I don't really like a lot of the role players there. I do trust that. I value that Magic defense to where I don't want to take a lot of overs. And for the Magic, I want to say I expect Paolo to have a big bounce back after only scoring 20 or having a game where he shot terrible last game. I want to say he has a bounce back. His point line today is at 22.5. I do lean the over at 22.5 just because I think he's gonna have a bounce back after scoring less than 10 points. But is his bounce back scoring more than 22 points? I don't know. So a lot of uncertainties in that game. Moving right along though, because I'm staying away from that game. Last game on the board: the Phoenix Suns versus the Trailblazers. This game did just happen a couple nights ago. Trailblazers blow out the Suns, beating them by 20 or beating them by 19. I do think the Suns bounce back here and beat them. I do. Suns kind of were on a tough spot there. They did beat the Warriors the night prior and then went to go face Portland and got smoked. Still on the road here against Portland. I expect them to bounce back. Portland did beat them last game, but before that, Suns beat them 4 straight games, beating them by more than 6 points in all those games. I do kind of expect the Suns to bounce back here. I don't really think the Trailblazers are on a great spot. They do play tonight against the Suns, and then they play again tomorrow night versus the Kings. They play 3 games in 4 days here coming up. So tough spot for the Trailblazers here. They're about to start playing a decent amount of games here in the next couple of days. In fact, the Suns not on a back-to-back. I lean the Suns here. I am contemplating even taking the Suns in some way today, and some way. So Devin Booker's been balling. I think KD has a little bit of a bounce back too. Not a lot of Trailblazers props I'm loving just because I do think the Suns here have a good game. I do think the Suns have a good game here. I think it was a tough spot for them against the Trailblazers last game, playing on a back-to-back, and I like the spot here for the Suns to have a little bounce back off a loss. So that's how I'm feeling about that game. No heavy leans to the player props there, but just heavy lean to the Suns. But 10-game NBA slate, hey, we had 2 straight winning weeks to start off the journey on YouTube. Last week, not a good week, man. Really was hoping the Bucks would get it done for us. If they would have got it done for us last night, the Bucks blow the fourth quarter lead. I feel like we've had some games where teams are up 10 points going into the fourth, and they're just blowing it when we've been on their money line or on their spread. So a little unlucky, but also can't shy away from it, can't hide away from it. The videos are proof in the pudding. You see the recaps at the beginning of the videos. I'm going to keep on showing them to you, even if we're down 20 units. You don't see a lot of people on social media, even on YouTube, posting their full recaps with their units behind it. You never really see a lot of people posting their units behind their plays. If they're showing recaps, they just show what they hit and what they didn't. I'm not going to shy away from it, man. Even if we go down 10 units in the next week, which is not the goal, we have not had that bad of a stretch in a really long time. So I'm expecting to bounce back here, but I told you guys this time of the year around NBA All-Star break, around trade deadline, it is the worst time of the NBA year, man. This is the worst time. Out of the last 6 years that I've been betting NBA, we've been profitable in 5 of the last 6. This year, man, this year's been our best time of the year in that January, beginning of February month. But every other year, this time of the year has always kind of beat me. It's always kind of it's destroyed me. So I'm hoping we kind of keep it back, get it back on track because, hey, 2 of the last 3 weeks we had winning weeks. Just this last week kind of sucked, man. It did kind of suck. Saturday, Sunday, pretty bad days, down days. Friday was even a down day. So we're hoping for a bounce back, man. We're hoping for a bounce back. Let me know in the comments if you're still going to be tailing any plays. If you're fading any plays, hey, fade them. Listen to the leans. Listen to the verbiage on the guys on some games that I'm talking about. There just might be some games where I'm not huge on a guy, but you may be really liking him. So, hey, if you're fading me already after 1 down week, I promise you're probably going to regret it. But hey, also at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. If we're cold right now, fade me. But I still expect a bounce back, and I'm expecting a bounce back today with a little 2-0 sweep. Got a couple more plays in VIP. We're locked in. We're about to have a damn day, and I'm hoping we get a nice winning day today to start off the week, man. Mondays have been good to us for most of this year. Mondays have been good. The Monday slates, we've been usually starting off Monday in the green. It's just the weekends have been crushing us, man. So I got to rethink my thinking here on the weekends. But to start the week, we've been green, green, green. So let's start it off in the green, green, green again today. 2-0 sweep. Let's smack today. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. And you already know, boys and girls, let's go.